You're certainly disenfranchising the true believers, if you like, the long-term people that join the ALP for genuine a belief in Labor principles, and they're certainly getting turned away, and the party's getting eroded as a result.
This pre-selection ballot for the safe Labor seat of Northcote was one that caused uproar.
I need two more. Not anymore. Apparatchiks. 9.
Northcote has always been a seat held by the left, but head office wanted Labor's latest celebrity sign-on, Mary Delahunty, to win. The battle was fierce. Many of the locals resented the former television journalist's intrusion into their patch. She was neither a resident nor tested as a party member. On both sides, emotions ran high.
I'll stay here and ask you a question. This is my people, they don't want to write or read.
The locals knew that the right-wing controlled head office was always going to have its way because of a stack engineered by this man, Nazi Al-Asmar, president of the High Street Arabic branch, and his factional colleague, Theo Theophanous.
People were being brought in by cars who didn't even know what it was all about or anything, were taken in and told how to vote and who to vote for.
Al-Asmar enjoys the personal support of over 140 Arabic members, more than 20% of the membership list. Many are active, but it's claimed a significant number have joined the party and vote out of loyalty to him. They're not coerced, but neither, it's argued, do they exercise an informed choice.
And these people don't take any part in the party at all. They don't give out how to vote cards. They don't do anything but roll out on the day to vote for the person to get into office. This is a denial of justice to the people who have been members for many years.
People, when they lose, they find any excuse. And I feel sorry for these people. They've never been loyal to the party. And now because they get out of the party, they get nothing of the party, they say whatever they want.
So they're turning against. Subsequent inquiries by us in the Northcote area support claims of branch stacking, that some members of the High Street branch are in it purely for the marks they can make on a ballot paper. We spoke with a number of members who told us they seldom, if ever, attended meetings and generally voted where directed. One man said he wasn't interested in politics, but had joined up as a favour to someone else. Another family said they voted Liberal at the last state and federal elections, but were also members of the ALP. And a third man said he'd been in the party for 2 years, had not once attended a meeting, but always voted where directed. Irregularities in the membership list were also uncovered by Delahunty's opponents, though they're not suggesting she knew of them. Door knockers found 10 members of the High Street branch lived in another electorate and claimed it was only after head office was notified that the branch withdrew the members' names from the roll. Theo Theophanous and Nazi Al-Asmar refused to answer specific allegations on camera or on the record, though on the day of the poll they did deny the claims of branch stacking. So has there been any stacking to ensure that she gets in, do you think, or to stop her?
I know that people like to run these lines. The fact is the party changed its rules 3 years ago.
There's no branch stacking, nothing in the area. We're all happy and we're all doing our job for the renewal.
Al-Asmar has been rewarded for his services to the faction. Last year, he secured an $85,000 a year position as mayor of the Labor-dominated Council of Darebin. It came about after a secret agreement between his Labor Renewal Alliance and Labor Unity. A copy of the agreement was tabled in State Parliament. The deal came unstuck after bickering with other factions crippled the council and the Kennett government sacked it.
This is not fair to the residents of the city of Darebin, is not fair to the staff, and is not fair for us. We are elected councillors.
Al-Asmar has been working closely with Theo Theophanous since, and we understand that when new council elections are called, Al-Asmar will stand and, if successful, has been promised 2 further terms as mayor. If the Northcote ballot was controversial, the one just a few suburbs away was a shocker. It was for the lower house seat of Sunshine and the upper house seat of Dootagalla.
I think they were antagonised to such an extent that they didn't even know, for starters, what they were doing there. And then they were told, well, look, you've got to vote for this particular candidate because that's the way it is.
The story of the ballot and some of the characters involved illustrates just how dark the stain of branch stacking has become in the Labor Party. Labor Unity's chosen candidate for the upper house seat was Taifun Erin. His running mate in the lower house was Telmo Languila, a member of the Renewal Alliance. They and their supporters formed a formidable team.
In the polling booth, many people did not exercise a free vote. There were many instances that I saw where people, supporters of the Taifun Erin and of Telmo Languila, who actually were filling in the ballot papers.
I actually saw cards ripped out of their hands and placed with cards of a different candidate, and actually been followed to pick up their voting tickets and then further move in with them to make sure that they voted correctly.
So people were actually standing over voters and...
Certainly.
Taifun Erin, of Turk descent, is the sitting member for Dutagalla. Before entering Parliament, he was embroiled in a major row over branch stacking in the Turkish community and forced to leave his then job with opposition leader John Brumby. Erin was elected to Parliament in 1996, partly due to a strong Turkish vote. His supporters have been accused of stacking the electorate. Les Tarkson doesn't doubt it.
Look, I belong to a Turkish branch, have done for 2 years. It's never met. It's never met. And yet, those people were called on, those branch members were called on to vote.
So what does that tell you?
That's a stack, and I don't care what anyone says.
Mehmet and Nurhan Boylan are both members of the exclusively Turkish Avalon branch, which has nearly 80 members. They say they joined because they thought they were helping the Turkish community, but now feel used. Did they take any money from you?
Para aldılar mı sizden?
Bizden hiç almadılar para.
No, they didn't want any money.
So you got your membership card, but you paid no membership fee?
No.
Did you ever attend any meetings?
No.
The couple say all that was required of them was to vote where directed.
Birileri varmış onların istedikleri.
Oylarınızı
buna vereceksiniz diyorlar.
They come and tell us that they want some specific person they've chosen, and they say you have to give your vote to these people.
Biz ona göre onların oyumuzu veriyorduk işte.
That's what we do, according to what they say.
Do you know of many others who, like you, paid no money but were enrolled?
Hepsi ödemiyorlar çoğu. Kimse ödemiyor.
Everyone I know that they don't pay.
Çoğunun kartları yanlarındaymış ya, vermiyorlar sahiplerine.
In the recent ballot, the pair were expected to vote for Erin in the upper house and Languila in the lower house. But when they told branch bosses that they wouldn't be voting for Languila, no one came to pick them up. What really mars this poll, though, are accusations that head office played an ugly race card in an effort to maximise the votes for Erin and Languila.
In a lot of council halls, like other community halls, but they chose to decide on the Turkish Cypriot Centre. I think the strategy was to alienate voters.
John Patsy Kathiadoru, a left-wing candidate, says the decision to hold the ballot there stirred bitter enmity between Greek and Cypriot members and their Turk counterparts.
The issue was raised repeatedly 2 weeks before the ballots, and many people said they weren't going to turn up to vote if
and
this is what, and many, in a sense, in the end, didn't.
That and the hall's out-of-the-way location meant only 800 out of a potential 1,300 voters turned up. For those who did come to vote, the atmosphere was poisonous.
I was threatened. I was told that if I continued on along those lines that something would happen to me. I was sworn at.
Luis Barragos was a scrutineer for his wife, a candidate in the poll.
After the arguments that took place, as I was going through the area where the social club, the Turkish social club, was congregating, I was told that I was being spat on, and when I did check my back, I actually felt the spit on my back, on my jacket. And then I was told outside that numerous other people had been spat on.
Les Tarkson says some of these people deliberately tried to provoke a candidate by burning his wife's coat with cigarettes.
It was an attack to try and upset that candidate, to come out and actually start a blur of some description.
I've never seen it so intimidating, you know, and so threatening by people. I think people just were simply scared of being there.
3 weeks before the ballot, a new variation on the stack occurred that improved the chances of both Erin and Languila. Head office was notified that 16 members of the Vietnamese community had moved from a neighbouring seat held by Labour Unity ally Sang Nguyen and were now living in Sunshine and eligible to vote. But we contacted most of these people and found the information given to head office wasn't true. Most were in fact long-term residents of Sunshine, but their presence had been concealed by registering them as members of branches in other electorates. It's called warehousing and designed to prevent political opponents from door-knocking or counter-stacking the voters. More disturbingly, some of these people told us they'd voted in electorates they hadn't lived in, at the behest of Sang Nguyen, who now expected them to vote in Sunshine. Intervention by the federal member for Calwell, Andrew Theophanous, also muddied the waters. Andrew, who employs Languila as an electorate officer, is the older brother of Labour renewal leader Theo. Andrew contributed to Languila's campaign by announcing in the Greek press that Bob Mammarella was a Turk, supported by a soccer club with links to a Turk terrorist organisation. Mammarella is in fact of Italian descent. Is that a direct quote? Is it in quotations? Do they source it directly to Mr Theophanous?
It is in quotation marks, yes.
It was an inflammatory accusation, given the row over the location of the ballot.
A lot of the Greeks who would have read it just before the election day certainly would have said enough's enough, there's too much mucking around on this, we don't know who to believe.
Andrew Theophanous wasn't only active in the Sunshine campaign, but also in Northcote, writing to members there on behalf of Labour renewal candidates. The letters went out under his federal parliamentary letterhead and were carried in envelopes franked by a machine Sunday has established was supplied by the federal parliament. In other words, the member for Calwell used taxpayers' money to wage an internal party war. And in Sunshine, it was a war he and his allies finally won. Telmo Languila scraped home by 6 votes. But the win remains controversial, even amongst the factions that supported him.
Why a lot of them didn't also come to vote was that the right faction that I belong to have supported a ex-communist.
Until 1984, Languila was an Australian-based organiser for the Communist Party of Uruguay. He is a controversial character in Victoria's Latin American community. Many Labour insiders believe the Sunshine seat was his reward for recruiting hundreds of Latin Americans into the Labour fold.
We were planning to have branches in every single suburb of Melbourne.
One of his first recruits was Salvador Núñez, who was offered a job in an MP's office if he helped build a power base amongst the state's Spanish-speaking community. Núñez says he declined the job, but nevertheless launched a recruitment campaign, believing it would help his people. Membership fees were not to be a problem.
He said, well, no problems, we'll pay for those people. We asked just to sign the form and,
Salvador estimates that in a few months they recruited 1,000 Latin Americans who were all expected to vote where directed by Languila and another prominent Labour figure, Carlos Baldovino. What if somebody doesn't want to vote the way they suggest?
Oh, they get a little bit annoyed and I know that there have been some incidents, but it's a really difficult area. But they get very upset with people that don't vote for them.
Salvador became president of the state's first Latin American branch. L'Anguilla was the Secretary-Treasurer, but the partnership soured after an argument over the branch's financial accounts.
I really said to him, look, we're going to be honest. I'm not prepared to continue in this committee if you are not prepared to present a financial report.
What did he say?
Well, he went off of his mind and really abused me pretty badly.
Salvador says he wound up the branch because of it. But by that time, L'Anguilla and Baldovino had established other power bases. These people were early supporters. They represent 11 adults in 2 families who have been members of the Labor Party for 5 years or more. They've never been active, nor have they paid membership fees.
I
am really concerned about who is paying for me to be in this Labour Party, who is really paying for me and why are they paying.
They say they were enrolled to support the political ambitions of L'Anguilla and Baldovino, believing promises of benefits for the Latin American community, including housing for the elderly.
Yeah, once they need the vote, they're the greatest friends you can have, and then after that they walk out the door and you don't know where they are and whether you can count on them.
This man says that despite throwing away his membership renewal forms, someone keeps paying his annual fees. Do people ring you up and say, tell you who to vote for?
Te llaman para decirte quién votar.
Por lógica, sí.
Yeah.
They always do.
Pero nunca sabemos quién gana porque para eso nos llaman.
They don't know who wins because they call you and say, go and vote here for this person, but they never call after to say whether the result was good or bad.
These families were too frightened to appear on camera. Daniel Alvarez probably knows the reason for that.
They came about 8 o'clock at night. You know, there was a knock on the door and...
You weren't expecting them?
I wasn't expecting them, no, not at all.
Alvarez, a party activist, was campaigning against L'Anguilla and Baldovino for an internal party position. So they paid him a visit. Baldovino did the talking.
Not at all. He was very serious and, and he accentuated the words, if I have to use a shotgun, I will use a bazooka. And if I have to use a bazooka, I will use missiles. You know, and he counted them off on his fingers as he was saying it.
And the purpose of using these weapons was to... Well,
to stop me from talking to anybody that within the Latin American community that were so-called his people.
So you took it as a threat?
Well, I certainly took it as a threat.
There's no doubt in your mind it was a threat?
There was no doubt.
While refusing to be interviewed, L'Anguilla and Baldovino both deny the claim by Alvarez. The many allegations of ethnic branch stacking and the squalid pre-selection fights of recent weeks seriously damage the Labor Party's credibility. And it's not as if senior Labor figures aren't aware of it. They are, but choose to turn a blind eye out of self-interest.
It really makes it hard for an ordinary member of the ALP who wants to see good government want to stay in the ALP. How can people want to stay if their vote means nothing because they're not part of a stack?
The major factions have all been involved. In fact, that's part of the problem, that they've all got skeletons in the closet and therefore all find it rather difficult to take some decisive action to clean up the situation.
Dean Miles says his union, the ETU, has had enough.
We will consider very carefully our association with the ALP in the future, because if branch stacking puts people into Parliament that don't represent the interests of working people, then should we really be associated with that party? It's not just our union, there's a number of unions looking at it too.
Enough's enough. I think, I've witnessed too many of these things that have gone on in the party, and it's about time someone stands up and buckets the people that are actually doing it, because they're bringing the party down, they're bringing the party in disrepute. That's one of the reasons why I believe we lost the last election, and I think that, if we don't pull our socks up, we're going to lose the next election. We're going to have Kennett in for another 4 years.